I'd like to welcome you all to Monday, September 13th, Mayor and Council meeting. And thank you for coming out tonight. And I would like to ask the Daughters of the American Revolution to come forward and lead us in the pledge. Mrs. Ruth Reed, Sue Gilbert, and Catherine Jimenez.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and I had a request by Councilmember Zapata to remove number 5 from the consent agenda. And I will ask you all for a motion. Do we have a motion to approve with the exception of number 5?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Judy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item is the proclamation for Constitution Week, September 17th through the 23rd. And thank you. Whereas September 17th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary and the patriotic celebration which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of the America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Lori Henry, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week and ask all of our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the Constitution by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties and honor and protect the words so proudly written by our forefathers. So I would once again like to ask the folks from the Daughters of the American Revolution to come forward and speak on behalf of the proclamation. Right here is great. Thank you. And then we'll ask for a picture, so don't go anywhere.
Okay. I want to say thank you so much for agreeing, and we're humbly thankful that you've done this for that week. It's something that the Daughters of the American Revolution are very proud of, and so happy that we can do this for the city of Roswell. And I brought some packets for you, which I will lay right here that explains it. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And like I said, we'd love to have a picture, so if you'll come forward here.
All right, I'll take a couple, okay? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the recognition of the Roswell Fire Department Citizen Emergency Response Team, Cert, program graduates. So, gentlemen, please come forward, and we're excited to hear about this. And we'll also want to take pictures.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Lieutenant Ed Botts with the Roswell Fire Department. I'm in charge of our Cert program. We have before you the graduates of our 7th class here in Roswell. We have trained over 90 citizens in the city of Roswell in emergency preparedness through our Cert program. Just a basic understanding of the Cert program, it educates volunteers for disaster preparedness. It's an 8-week course where each week they have to go online and complete part of a course that's developed by FEMA. And then we meet and we talk about the different topics for that week. We do disaster preparedness, hazmat. We do 2 weeks of medical training, first aid, CPR, AED. We do a light search and rescue class. We do a fire control class. And we do a class on terrorism and disaster psychology. So there's a lot of work that they have to do before they even come to the class that night. So they have to wind up putting a lot of their own time into being trained in emergency preparedness. So I'd like to recognize the 62 members of our class. First one would be Nicholas Blanchard. And we have Russ Etheridge. We have Luke Foster. We have Tina Hauk. We have Linda Lee Parker. And last but not least, Joe Valero. Mayor and Council, these are our graduates from our 7th Cert class.
Let's hear it for these folks. And we would love to have a picture with you. Chief Panino, did you have additional comments to make?
Very proud of him. Lieutenant Botts does a fantastic job, and it's great to have these trained citizens available should we find ourselves in the midst of a disaster. Very proud of them.
And I would like to thank you again for stepping up. This is just a wonderful, wonderful part of the city of Roswell. Your volunteer efforts are truly appreciated, and please know that we are always in your debt. So let's have a picture. Another round of applause. The next item on the mayor's report is the approval of the Public Safety Service Agreement with the City of Mountain Park for fire and rescue services. And I'll give a little preamble to this, which, as you all know, that we have been in negotiations with Mountain Park for quite some time. This goes back to very early on when I was elected as mayor, and we have been negotiating our agreement with them. What Mountain Park chose to do, and what I am proposing we honor with this MOU, is that Mountain Park would like to contract with us, as you all have seen in a recent council meeting, our 911 services, which we have in place. And then this is also the agreement for our fire services. They have decided that it's in their best interest to contract with Fulton County Sheriff's Office for their police services, so they're not requesting our fire services, our police services. But they are requesting fire services, and I can assure you that the work done by our staff has ensured us that Mountain Park will pay the same amount of money for fire services as the City of Roswell citizens do. So that's what I'm bringing before you this evening. I don't know that we have a staff member here to present it. You've got the MOU in your packet, so I would open it up for questions from council. Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So just couple clarifying questions. So first of all, what you described, I believe you're saying that the exact per capita fee or per capita cost of Roswell residents for fire is the exact same per capita cost that Mountain Park would be paying?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. And then now, has this been presented at another meeting, or is this the first time the public's seeing this in an actual meeting?
This was presented in a Mountain Park meeting. Mountain Park signed this agreement, and I am coming to you with it once Mountain Park agreed to it. There was no reason for me to come to you before Mountain Park agreed to it. But it's been to numerous committee meetings and council meetings. And the City of Roswell Council has instructed us to negotiate with them. So this is a result of the negotiation, and I am leaving it in your hands.
So yeah, and I'd say we definitely did authorize to negotiate, and I'm glad to hear that Mountain Park has agreed on that same per capita fee. It's just I'm surprised that it hasn't come to a committee meeting first or something for the public to kind of get to kind of hear the discussion and weigh in ahead of time. So that's kind of my only concern with the process.
Mr. Davidson.
So this was brought to council several times, and this exact rate is what council instructed us to negotiate with Mountain Park to. That was all in open meetings and committee meetings. This was actually in the instruction that this council gave to me to go to Mountain Park with. So they just agreed to our terms, basically.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you. So, like the city attorney said, that was discussed several times, but not this particular agreement. So, again, I don't know why it didn't come through committee meeting first to inform all mayor and council and the people of Roswell, instead of coming straight to mayor and council. And it's true, have been discussed many times, but not exactly these terms, which are presented here for the first time. So just to make a point here and clarify.
Councilmember Zapata, I believe that you're making a point and clarifying something that is a matter of record. This has come before the committee on numerous occasions over the last 3 years. It has also come to council on numerous occasions, and we negotiated on behalf of the direction of council. So I'm not quite certain where this does not meet the transparency threshold. Are there additional comments from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Mayor, we can only hear you. We cannot hear council. I do not see anyone approaching. Thank you. I'll bring this back to council. Additional comments from council? Councilmember Hall.
I just have a question to go back to the meetings. When we were discussing, and I know it was a few months back, so perhaps I forgot. I understand that it is more challenging to provide fire services in the city of Mountain Park than it is in other parts of Roswell. And would there be an opportunity down the line? I see that we can change this agreement, but if we find that the cost far exceeds the same cost as per resident, would that be something that we could address?
Yes, ma'am, we can change that with 30 days' notice.
Thank you.
Additional comments from council? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Tizer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is number 5 that was pulled from the consent agenda, and that is the approval for the mayor and/or interim city administrator to sign an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Atlanta and the City of Roswell, Georgia, for the Chattahoochee Pedestrian Bridge project that includes acceptance of reimbursement funds for the associated water line. And Mr. Rofe.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. So this is the IGA staff is recommending to sign with the City of Atlanta. City of Atlanta has some water utility on the south side of the bridge in Sandy Springs. So their suggestion is, City of Atlanta's suggestion is for Roswell to include the utility relocation into the City of Roswell's construction contract, and then City of Atlanta would reimburse all costs for the work. So the estimated cost that we have is about $35,100, and all amount would be reimbursed to the City of Roswell after the fact, after the work is completed.
And can you explain to me, I believe I understand this, that the City of Atlanta has a water line that is attached to the bridge, Highway 9 bridge over the Chattahoochee River, is that correct?
Yes.
And this is to relocate that water line, which the City of Atlanta will pay for, is that correct?
Yes, it's the water line plus some related utilities to it to the south side of the bridge in the City of Sandy Springs.
And let me, if you would, refresh our memories on the reason why you're bringing it to us as opposed to Atlanta taking it to Sandy Springs.
So the City of Roswell is the sponsor of this project. That means City of Roswell is the one who received the $3 million earmark federal grant about almost 2 decades ago now. So the City of Roswell is the sponsor, so any agreements that have to be signed for this project, they have to be with the project sponsor, which is the City of Roswell.
Thank you, sir. Does council have any questions for staff? Seeing no questions, is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? And I would like to remind you to please provide us with a comment card. Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
I would like to request that each of you speak into your microphone because the only one we can hear is the mayor. When people stand here, we cannot understand or hear one word they're saying because their back is to us. What Mr. Roth just had to say, I'm sure, was quite important, but we could not hear him at all. We come to these public meetings so we can hear it, not live stream it at home. So it would be really nice if somebody would teach people how to use a microphone. All of you, because we can't. There's nothing wrong with my hearing, but can you understand a word I'm saying right now? Guess what? It's sound like your mouth. That's what it sounds like, people. As far as this bridge goes and the water thing, the pedestrian bridge, I requested one maybe 10, 15 years ago, and I gave them, the city of the transportation head at that time, a very usable, viable solution for pedestrians. Of course, it was ignored because I am a female of a certain age and I'm not an engineer, so I couldn't possibly know anything. However, I'm concerned that we're putting the bridge, the pedestrian bridge, on the wrong side of the car bridge. It's not going to serve anyone that lives in my corridor, and of whom none of you live there either. So you wouldn't know what it's like. But there are thousands of people that live on the Highway 9 corridor that would like to cross the river, not to go canoeing or kayaking, to walk to the grocery store. And it's on the wrong side of a project. You people need to go take a walk in my world and understand what it's like. And it doesn't need to be this bridge, and that we're going to contract with the City of Atlanta to replace a water bridge, a water pipe that was probably installed in 1950, which is okay, except that it's on the wrong side of the bridge, the pedestrian bridge. I'm going to repeat that so you can get it, because they say if you say something 5 times, people remember it. The pedestrian bridge is on the wrong side of the bridge. People that live on Highway 9 don't have a crosswalk or 1.2 miles. How in the hell are we going to get to the other side of that road to cross the bridge? But it's perfect for the people of Sandy Springs because it connects to their sidewalk. So we're going to enable them to come to our side and go to our parks. Once again, the city is flipping the people of the corridor the bird.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Jason Yowell, 5010 Old Oak Trace. Thank you, Councilman Zapata, for requesting that this be moved off the consent agenda. I concur with Janet, and I've been saying this for a long time. The road, the pedestrian bridge is on the wrong side of the vehicular roadway for so many reasons. Not the least of which it is the more expensive side to put it on. You've got so many problems putting it on that side, and it dictates so much of the design of the gateway with regard to the multi-purpose path coming up and taking out 2.5 acres of woods between the road and Vickery Creek. In 2012, a study was done comparing the cost. There was a $900,000 difference between putting it on the east side or the west side. You're taking $35,000 to mess with an old water main. That's an awful lot of liability for very little money. I wouldn't do it. I'd find another place to put my bridge because, well, I'm not in the habit of incurring liability unnecessarily. Just my personal preference, but clearly the city of Roswell goes, liability, who cares? Let's mess with the old water line. What could happen? It could break. Wow, what's that going to cost? Sandy Springs, I don't know if anybody is familiar with some of the studies that Sandy Springs has done. They're planning to do a park on their riverfront on the west side of the bridge. And they've even got conceptual plans to put a pedestrian bridge over to Azalea Park from their park. Makes a lot more sense to be there. There's just nothing about the gateway that makes any sense. That intersection at the river is going to gridlock at the roundabout. It's not going to be safer. It's not a direct route to the Riverwalk, and let's face it, the Riverwalk is the common destination. Whether you're coming from Sandy Springs or you're coming from Roswell, the Riverwalk is the common destination. And it's a really roundabout and dangerous way that you get to the Riverwalk from Roswell. You've got to cross a ridiculously busy intersection that is going to have twice the number of cars going across where they're all going to be crossing in the middle of this path. Not great design, terrible design. And the only defense that RDOT has for this horrible design is, well, we've been working on it for over 10 years. Really, and that's what you came up with? That's pretty sad. Wow. You really need to stop doing anything with the gateway, at least until after the election. Because you might get a mayor who goes, psst, those plans in the garbage. We're starting over. We're going to be sensible. We're going to do this economically. We're going to increase the safety. We're not going to shift the dangers. Because it's all been about safety, according to RDOT, but it's not improving safety. It's shifting the risks. And this is just, wow, mind-boggling to me. Kill it. Start over. It's cheaper. It'll get done quicker. Because if you like the way Oxbow worked out for us, wow, that design of the gateway is going to be catastrophic, and you're not going to improve the traffic flow one iota when it's finished.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Not seeing anyone approach. Council have additional comments before I call for a motion? Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. This is a question for transportation for Director Ralph. Does this have anything to do or affect the property on the other side of the bridge that the resident is having conversations with Sandy Springs about? Where they're potentially taking some of that land for sewer lines?
The project has impacts on the other side in Sandy Springs, but not the water line.
This water line has nothing to do with that.
Item today does not.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, here are some points from the residents and taxpayers, and I would like our Department of Transportation to address the concerns from the taxpayers and residents of Roswell, and also what is the reason, according with their perspective, of locating the bridge on the east side versus the west side, and what is the logic from the Transportation Department point of view to do that.
Councilmember Zapata, I would like to stay on task. This item is about the water line. It's not the location of a pedestrian bridge. It's not that it doesn't involve that. This is the relocation of a water line, plain and simple. Councilmember Zapata.
Plain and simple, the relocation of the water line is related to the location of the bridge. So everything is related. You might want to segment it in different pieces, but it's all the same thing, and it's all related. So my question is, how can staff address the concerns and also justify why the east side versus the west side on something that is related, because if not, this water line will still be there.
Can you answer that question in a brief response? I realize that you are not here prepared to speak to that, and we have discussed it many times, even though it's related. And can you give us a synopsis of what we've heard before and what we will hear this evening as far as the water line?
Absolutely, Mayor. Thank you so much. Yes, some of the history of the project is very initially when we reviewed different concepts, different alternates for this project. The main reason I recall from about 10 years ago is the presence of a cliff where some apartment buildings sit on top of it. That would be the northwest quadrant of the intersection of Highway 9 and Riverside Azalea. That was one of the main reasons. And the current location, which is on the east side of the existing vehicular bridge, it connects perfectly into the Historic Gateway project. The Historic Gateway project constructs multiple pedestrian crossings across Highway 9 to get people from either side of Highway 9 on the trail on the east side, and that connects into this pedestrian bridge. So it has perfect connectivity basically to both sides of Highway 9. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. And if memory serves me correctly, what you're saying in the short version is on the, I still call it Grand Creek apartment side. I'm not sure what it's called now, but on that side of the street, those apartments are sitting on cliffs. It would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, and extremely costly to try to dig a tunnel under those cliffs to get pedestrians to that walkway. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Mayor. We are actually not even putting a sidewalk on the west side along the cliff, exactly for that reason, because it would be extremely costly. But there is a crosswalk to cross Highway 9 right at that point, so all pedestrians can get to the east side of Highway 9 and eventually onto this bridge or east-west on Riverside or Azalea.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Tizer?
I was just waiting to make sure no one else had a comment, none had a comment and a motion.
I want to call for a motion, but please make a comment.
Yeah, you know, as part of, before I make the motion, when you're ready to call it, I know we voted on this a number of times over the last few years. If the clerk could, over the next few days, provide us with the information of the number of times we have voted on this bridge in its various requirements and what the results of those votes were, I'd appreciate that. And when you're ready, I'll be prepared to make a motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Tizer, and I will request that staff provide that information to this council. Additional comments from council? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve item number 5.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Tizer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will send this over to Councilmember Christine Hall for community development.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 4, approval of RZ 2021-2612, CU 2021-2613, CV 2021-2614, 12740, and 12770, Arnold Mill rezoning from AG 43 agricultural to NX neighborhood mixed use, conditional use for height, and concurrent variances to build to zone, and ground floor story height for a senior living community. This applicant is requesting a deferral to the November 8th, 2021 Mayor and Council meeting. Mr. Turner will present.
Good evening, thank you. Yes, the applicant has requested deferral, and staff recommends deferral. Is there any questions for staff at this time?
Because we've got people in the audience that may be interested in speaking about this and may not be able to come back at the deferral date, I will ask if there's anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak about this item, knowing that it will be deferred and there will be another public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak this evening? Seeing no one approach, Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, could you clarify why the applicant has asked for a deferral?
Sure. As a result of the last month's Planning Commission meeting, they're going to work on a few things, one of them being see if they can get some redesign to bring down some of the height, see if there's additional things they can do, work out with the neighbor. So.
Thank you.
Motion.
Yes, Mayor, motion to defer.
Motion to defer by Councilmember Hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. Back to you, Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 5, approval of PV 2021-2949, CV 2021-2950, located at 525 and 545 West Crossville Road, Parkway Village, small tract status for 4 office buildings and concurrent variances to build to zone, parking setback from 92, streetscape depth requirement, landscape island width, and ground sign primary setback. and Ms. Dybel will present.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Parkway Village Small Tract status request for 525 and 545 Crossville Road. The property is zoned Parkway Village PV. Here's an aerial view of the property. We do have several others. This is a close-up aerial view showing the properties at 545 and 525. Here's another aerial showing you a little bit further along the road, up and down on either side, east and west. Show you what the section of the area there near Hackett Crossing, a little bit further right there by Crossway Lane. The zoning of the property, as I stated, is Parkway Village. This is the proposed site plan. As you can see, there are 4 buildings. They are asking all of them to be office uses. Here's a site plan analysis of what you've seen. 4 buildings, 6,000 square feet each, 1.89 total acres. They have a proposed 82 parking spaces, including 4 ADA. There are 4 motorcycle spaces provided, 6 bicycle spaces. They have a 40-foot neighborhood compatibility buffer, and they're showing a proposed 10-foot sidewalk along Highway 92. This is an up-close version of the front portion of the site plan, showing the front 2 buildings. As you can see, the sidewalk along Highway 92. This is the back half of the site plan, showing the neighborhood compatibility buffer at 40 feet. The 2035 comprehensive plan indicates this is within the Parkway Village character area. As stated, there are 5 concurrent variances that they are requesting to a reduction in the minimum percentage of the build-to zone along the primary street from 60% to 51.87%, a reduction in the streetscape depth measured from the property line from 40 feet to 16 feet, a reduction in the parking setback measured from the property line from 50 feet to 16 feet, a reduction in the ground sign front line setback from 10 feet to 2, and a reduction in the parking lot island width from 9 feet to a range from 5 feet to 8 feet. This next slide shows you the different variances. The orange along the street down at the bottom is showing you the line for the parking setback. It's hard to see. It's because the green that's outlined in the front is the streetscape depth, showing it to be from 40 feet to 16 feet. It's 16 feet from the property line. The blue that's highlighted is the sign, requesting the setback variance from 10 feet to 2. The pink highlighted along the buildings is the build-to width percentage. And the yellow in the back shows that there are 3 landscape islands that they're requesting to reduce from the 9 feet requirement to go from 5 to 8 feet. But it's only 3 landscape islands within the property. As stated earlier, this is the aerial. So these are the properties. What we're showing you next are some pictures to show you the depth of the streetscape along the road, which is ranging about 100 feet to the east and 100 feet to the west past the property. Here's the property that's closest, I would say, that starts where you see where River Oak Drive is, just past that to the subdivision to the west. It's starting there right at the end of that property. This is another portion going down. Right there where the for sale signs is, right where that utility pole is basically the property that is before you this evening. That utility pole is the end of this proposed property for this evening. One more portion here, and then this one is down further 100 feet. Those white buildings are where Hackett Crossing is today. This is to show you the streetscape along the road. The staff is recommending approval of the Parkway Village small tract status and all concurrent variances with the following conditions. The owner-developer to develop the property in accordance with the August 16th site plan, that a combination plat shall be completed and recorded prior to submittal for any permits, that the square footages are not guaranteed. The applicant may have to reduce building size or rearrange parking as required by staff comments, and that the owner-developer shall explore options of connectivity with the adjacent properties for interparcel connectivity if other property owners are amenable, and that should be R and not area, sorry. So that is mainly due to the property, I would say, let me find it, here we go, to the west, which is the property that's along Crossway Lane. And that is staff's presentation. Do you have any questions for staff?
Council have any questions for staff? At this time, I'd like to hear from the applicants.
Mayor, Council, thank you for hearing us today. As we're asking for a small tract status, we have met with our neighbors. Some of them are back here today. They have been on board. There are some corrections to the documents we sent in. Lori from my office has been in touch with the tenant to the right, which is east of us. They want to sell at such a high number, we couldn't tie them in, but we're always open to dealing with them on phase 3. Or, when we get this built, we don't mind tying them in, but we just can't afford to suck them in on this. There's a dentist to our left. There's 3 properties behind us. And 2 of the items that the property owners did ask for is they asked us to remove the fence. We put a 6-foot wooden privacy fence back there for their behalf, but they asked us because of what happens to fences over time. They said, let's not put it up. If council's okay with that, we'll take it off our final plan. And the other thing is they've asked, there's a half a dozen pine trees, big pine trees. You'll see them up there in that back buffer zone. And they're asking us to take those out in addition because these pine trees, when the storm hits, throws debris everywhere. So we said we're amicable to that. Okay. That being said, I think council said pretty good. I think your department said pretty good what we're looking for. The parking setback off 92 was 50 foot. We're trying to push back to 40 foot, which is a 10 foot. We're putting in a fence and we're putting in 2 rows of bushes. So we got a lot of variation in our landscape. We got 4 different kinds of bushes along the front. We have, I believe, 7 or 9 different variations of bushes on the property. We got 9 variations of trees, not counting the green in the back. We're trying, we really work hard to be working with our neighbors. I am an architect. I'm the architect on the project. I'm also the president of the development company. And we are planning on buying one of these 4 buildings, so we are going to be a permanent neighbor. And we're all about being good neighbors. The one issue that we did have was the landscape setback. We'd like it to meet the parking setback. And I think that's about what I need to say. Is there anything that council would ask?
Council have any questions for the applicant? Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Can you describe what the buildings will look like a bit, or tell us what the target market is for the type of tenants, or a little bit of information about them?
Yes, ma'am. We're actually targeting the medical arena. The buildings are going to have a stone base on them for a water table base, if you will. And then it's going to be brick all the way up, and you're going to have storefront glass. The intent behind these buildings is they're maintenance-free. You'll see a lot of buildings that are built 10 years later. They look shabby. They look like your house after 10 years. It needs another coat of paint. Now we got 4 separate homeowners. How do we get this going on? We build these buildings with materials where we pressure wash each year, but you don't go in and paint the brick. You don't paint the glass. So the buildings maintain their fresh look.
I would also like to add that this project will go before the Design Review Board, and they will stipulate the elevations. So, yes, Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry, and thank you for the presentation. So I have a couple different questions. So first off, I just want to be clear. So because whenever there is, a commercial use like this, backing up to some residences, I prefer a privacy fence. But I obviously, if the residents are saying no, actually they don't need it, and it's not helpful. So I just want to be completely confident. So it's the back neighbors that share a property line.
Yes, sir. They're actually here tonight. Okay. The marshal actually owns the 2. There's 4 property lines if you see there. He owns the middle 2. And Johnny owns the far right, and we actually had a meeting the other day, we were talking about this, and they will come up and tell you about the fence, because obviously I wouldn't take it down without them saying it. But that's
Excellent. Yeah, no, that's great, because as I mentioned, from everything I hear from residents, I'm always preferring to get that in and add that extra protection. But I really appreciate you meeting with the neighbors ahead of time on that. And then, and I guess probably same thought process with the big pine trees. So that makes sense there on their requests. So I guess my next questions are probably a little more towards staff related to the project. So I guess first of all, I believe, so as I'm looking, I see in yellow 4 landscape islands, or is that the correct term for those, the 4 islands?
Okay, so the yellow section is highlighted, but there's, from what I understand, there were only 3 landscape islands. One is the one in the back, that's all by itself, and then the 2 on the corner on that yellow section. Unfortunately, we highlighted the whole thing, but it was the 2 on the ends of that section, so there are only a total of 3 landscape islands.
Okay, so.
Can I add to it? I have further explanation for you, but in speaking with the fire chief, and this is where this changed a little bit, the back island you see, if we slid the island to the left of that building over one, it wouldn't even be required because the requirement's 8 parking spaces an island. The fire chief wanted a 30-foot turnaround. He said you could even paint that. The 4 islands you see there, we cut them in order for the fire truck to have an easier turn through the property. And as you can see, the very front triangle piece, it is a drive-over curb, if you will. So the fire truck can literally come in and circle the whole property and come out, or go right down the middle and turn. So by giving him more access to the property, it chews up some of the islands, because these trucks aren't small, we all know that.
And then I guess, and my question for staff is, which you may or may not have just addressed, is there's not even a requirement to have as many of those islands as there currently are. Is that correct? Or yes, all those islands are required?
There's a requirement for all islands with 8 spaces, so there are a couple in there that look like they might be extra, but we do require an island every 8 spaces.
Gotcha, okay. And, because, yeah, I'm seeing there's, if I'm looking at this correctly, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots in between 2 islands. Am I looking at that correctly?
Correct.
Okay.
And then the other, yeah.
So it seems to me that they are going above the necessary islands. Because that certainly makes me more supportive of wanting to be able to support reducing the size, knowing that they weren't required to put as many as they had. So that, I'm seeing staff nodding their head, yes. Yep, okay, so that answers that one. And then the other questions I have is, again, I think more towards staff, is I think when I had looked at this in advance and had some questions for you, it sounded like, and I think you might have addressed it a little bit, I just want to make sure it's crystal clear for me. So the way the measurements are occurring on where should that landscape area start and where should that parking start, it's based on the property line, which typically most of us would think of the property line as probably at the sidewalk, something along those lines. But I believe for this property, it's further back than that, which is I think where a lot of this discussion's coming from on that request. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. The property line, if you look at the green line that's closer to the sidewalk that's highlighted green, that is where the property line actually is. A lot of times you do think the property lines are right behind the sidewalk, but this time the property line is further back.
Okay, so therefore, even if council chooses to support this, all these different requests, it still would create a large distance from the sidewalk. It's just, it wouldn't create as large of a distance from the property line. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Additional questions for the applicant from council? I will reserve rebuttal. And is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir, please come forward. And I would like to remind everyone that we need a comment card filled out and left up at the podium, please.
Hello, I'm James Tidwell, and I've lived in at 485 West Crossville Road for 32 years, and I have seen a lot of changes, and they widened the road in front of my house, and so it took 5 feet of my property, and that started around, I think, 1996 or so. And so it's been a long time, and it took a long time for it to complete. But the thing is, the city has made some sort of a zoning that you have to have 7 acres of property in order to put a commercial, to be a commercial building. So if you want to have this property, build 4 buildings on this property, you need to change the zoning so all the properties on West Crossville Road can become commercial properties by themselves, not as a joined 7-acre plot. That's my opinion. And, you know, I've been living there for a long time, and I bought that property because I knew that the property was going to go commercial, but now it's been held back all this time since I've lived there, and I'm not happy about it. And you want to put in some commercial buildings down the street, and that you're not changing the zoning. You need to change the zoning first. That's all I've got to say. No. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Is there any, yes, sir, please come forward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Me and my wife own the property next door, actually, to 525, which is 505 West Crossville Road. I don't know how the developer and the gentleman met with the people behind in the subdivision behind us, but he never took the time to meet with any of us in the street to ask us anything about this. The only time we were contacted by them was through a letter that they wanted to buy our property. We never discussed anything regarding the property next door. This property, as my neighbor next door knows, the city of Roswell used to give us so much problems for parking more than 4 cars. For God's sakes, you guys brought me to court because a couple of neighbors behind complained because I had 5 cars in my driveway one time. And this is a matter of public record. You can go back in, I believe it was 1998 or 1999. I had just too many cars in my parking, in my home, where I live, where I pay all the taxes to the city, to the county. Now the city comes and has a hearing on something like this when your codes, as far as I've been downstairs to the code zoning and planning office many, many times in the past, wanting to put businesses in there, ask them how I can add more space to my property. They said, well, according to our codes, you can add 600 square feet, basically 20% to the property. But here they're proposing buildings at 12,000 square feet per acre, 2 buildings. And behind us, there's a creek that runs there. When you guys approved the townhomes down the street, my house flooded its basement for the first time ever. I had to put a sump pump in because you guys disturbed some property, big parcels down there where they build all those townhomes right down the street from us. I looked at their plans. They have no plan on hooking this up to a sewer system, which is right down the street. It's about 200, 300 feet down. There's a sewer line. I asked the gentleman outside, how are you gonna get rid of all your, are you gonna have a septic tank? They said, yes, another septic. There's a creek that runs behind our property. Once they develop this land and disturb the topo of this land, if anything happens, my property gonna get damaged for sure. Because there's gonna be water that's gonna, behind the creek that runs, flows right through there. And basically, from what I look at the plan, they're planning to bring some of that water and put it under the ground and just back into the creek which runs behind my house. So those are some of the points, and the gentleman said the property to the west of him is the dentist. No, it's not. Those are all those are homes. Those are single family residence owned by a lady named Roya Sopani, which was my neighbor for almost 27 years. So a dentist could have bought the property, yes, but that's not a true statement by the developer that there's a dentist. There's no dentist there. These are single family homes. Mine is a single family home, so is Mr. Tidwell, still living in it. And these properties can be changed. Of course, I don't have to tell you that City Hall these properties have a current zoning of R75, basically. And they are okay, I mean, they were okay for a zoning of Parkway Village. And everything back then on the Parkway Village, they used to get grants from the city to be built. Even the office building down the street is one single-story office building. It's not 2 stories. Plus the setbacks. I mean, if you're gonna let them build 40 feet setback from the city, my property is already 50 feet before. It looks like a sore thumb, gonna come and put 4 buildings in between residences. And also in the past, we were told that we were part of that subdivision in the back. So I've been to that subdivision and I've talked to some of the neighbors. I don't see any of them here tonight. A lot of them have, on the fear of some of them are very old, and they're afraid of this corona, and they didn't want to attend some of the meetings. But they have concerns as well about this plan. So, I mean, please don't rush this. I mean, this is something that you have to think about, and just please drive by the property. They showed the picture to the property to the west of it, but they didn't show the pictures to my property, Mr. Tidwell's property, and other properties along the line. Thank you very much for listening to me. Anybody has any questions?
Thank you,
for
sir.
me?
You can be seated.
Thank you.
And I will ask staff as well as the applicant to come forward with clarification points as soon as we hear from the rest of the public. So is there anyone else? Yes, sir, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Marshall Lichtenstein, and I live directly behind this project. Thank you. Okay. I live directly behind this project, and I'm totally for this. I don't have any problems. Mr. Boatman has been upfront and transparent with my wife and I and our neighborhood for since it began, and for me, I think it provides a sound barrier from the Audubon out there behind my house. I think the design is well thought out and well laid out. I like the buffers at the back of the property. I certainly approve of taking down those pine trees because they're just junk trees and they keep falling down on my fence anyway, so I'd like to get rid of them. But I'm totally for this project. I think it's a good use of the property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward? No, sir, we've heard from you. We've heard from you. Thank you so much. You're out of order, please. And I would like to ask staff to clarify zoning, please, on this property. There was some question about zoning. And then we'll hear from the applicant again.
As you can see from the zoning map, the properties that are fronting along West Crossville Road, Highway 92, are all zoned Parkway Village. The properties to the rear that are kind of like that yellow color are RS18, single family residential, but these are all zoned Parkway Village. So the Parkway Village zoning and classification was placed on these properties along 92 in 1992. So at that time, and the gentleman who spoke first was correct, what the council at the time wanted to see was properties that would get together 7 acres or more. for village development. So the Roswell Crossing Shopping Center, the Target Shopping Center, all those developments were more than 7 acres. At this time, it has been 30 years, almost 30 years since then. So mostly what you have left over are smaller properties along the road, and trying to get 7 acres might be a difficulty. A lot of these properties are a couple acres. You might have 1 or 2. You might have some that are 4. That's why the council at the time also put in what they call Parkway Village small tract status. And this has been in the ordinance for the Parkway Village overlay and the zoning since 1992. So what the request is for this evening is considered Parkway Village status, small tract status request. And any applicant or any homeowner can come before mayor and council and request that. They have that right to ask.
Thank you. Before I entertain additional questions from council, would the applicant like to come forward and address any of the comments that were made?
First, just one for clarity for Councilmember Palermo. Marshall might want to speak to you about the fence, because as I told you before, I'm good either way, but the homeowners were asking us not to put the fence, and you needed to hear from them, not from me. Oh, I missed that. I'm sorry if he said that. Okay. The other thing is we have been in touch with the neighbors to the right. We have sent a number of correspondence, and then Lori, my wife, actually got them on the phone. We actually have a recording of it, so it's not like we haven't reached out. We got half a dozen text messages, letters, and then a phone call that got recorded. So it's not like we've ignored anybody. Everybody else we were able to get in touch with and talk to. The applicant to the right doesn't live there. That was one of the problems we were having, is tracking them. And we were going through your tax records. The water, can we pull up the site plan, please? So I can explain some of the water situation. Good. If you zoom into the road between the buildings, what happens in this area is the road that the neighborhood subdivision is on the left. They have a drain coming off the street, and it's piped all the way to our property right there. And currently, then it just free flows to the other side. It's a creek. So what we've done is, in dealing with the dentist, civil engineer people and ours, we're going to continue the pipe that they're put in, and it carries that water all the way down past the buildings and back to some riprap to slow it down and get it back to the speed of creek and let it flow into the creek. So it's flowing in the same place it's always flowed. We're just piping it now. And as far as the water coming off our property, on the right-hand side, you see that big hatch pattern. That's all underground detention that we're holding the water and then feeding back to the riprap. And all that will be run through the DRB, and it'll be run through the LDP. We're just not going to ad hoc it out there.
Thank you, sir. Does council have any questions for the applicant or staff? Councilmember Tizer.
Just a question for staff. Probably Ms. Bromberg is the right person to ask this of. The questions about stormwater that were brought up by the neighbors. I think I just heard that there's underground detention, but could you opine on whether this will help or hinder the stormwater situation that was described by the neighbor who has a flooding basement?
Sure, absolutely. And I'm not familiar with when the townhomes came in and it causing any flooding problems. That's something we'll certainly take a look at to see if there's anything that we can make sure during the design process that this is not going to exacerbate that. When the stormwater design is done, as the applicant mentioned, as the dentist office is redeveloping to the west of this location, they are redoing the pipe system that is on that property today. It'll be shifting over just a little bit. And so the applicant has been working on figuring out how to best get that water through their property. Today, the water comes in and basically is to the top of the screen, just behind those 2 buildings at the top is where it's flowing today. And they wanted to try and pipe that through. Initially, they were going to keep it in that same location, but we can't have the stormwater pipes in the neighborhood compatibility buffer because then we can't landscape that. So we've worked with them to find a way to reroute it through their site in order to be able to provide both a drainage capacity as well as the neighborhood compatibility buffer with the correct plantings. As it was mentioned, part of that's going to bypass through and then reconnect to that same drainage easement that exists today. And then the rest of the water that's coming from the new development will go through the underground stormwater system. There'll be both water quality and detention provided. And they are required to meet the pre and post criteria, which is their post design has to be the same or better than, which means less flow than the pre-design. And that's part of the hydrology report that would go through the full review process at the land disturbance permit time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Additional questions from council? Yes, Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And actually, this is just a follow-up question to Ms. Bromberg, just to confirm that the developer is responsible for doing that stormwater work as part of this plan.
That is correct. And then they're going to be working jointly with the dentist office design engineers to make sure they work together.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So another follow-up question for staff based on hearing that. So to be clear, though, there are no variances, no exceptions, no changes occurring to the neighborhood compatibility buffer, which is what separates the commercial area from the homes behind it?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Additional questions, comments from council? I will entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Actually, Jackie, could you put up the last page? So it's the, is the fence in here anywhere? Okay, so do we need to, this is a question for Mr. Davidson, do we need to address the fence, or since it's not part of it?
Well, I think it's included in the plan currently. Is that?
It is, but the neighbors are asking us not to.
Right. So you might want to just ask that it be taken out of the plan.
Okay. And are the pine trees included in the plan currently? Okay. Here's motion to approve item number 5, approval of PV 2021-2949, CV 2021-12950, located at 525 and 545 West Crossville Road. Parkway Village small tract status for the 4 office buildings and concurrent variances to build to zone, parking setback from 92, streetscape depth requirement, landscape island width, and ground sign primary setback with the staff recommended conditions and without the fence at the back of the property and without the pine trees. And are they located at the back of the property?
They are in the.
And the pine trees.
We've got a motion by Councilmember Hall. Do I have a second? Let me entertain a second before we do that. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. Clarifying question, Councilmember Zapata.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So, I don't know if it's for legal department, can we request a signed letter from the neighbors on the back stating that they don't need a fence and about the trees as well? Is any way that we can have on record a formal letter signed by the neighbors behind the property?
So I guess you could make the conditioned on getting a letter from the neighbors on the backside of the property.
Yeah, that will be, if, Councilmember Hall agree on having a formal letter from the neighbors to state that, that would be great.
Ms. Dybel.
One comment on that, no fence is actually required in the back. Fences aren't, you don't have to do a fence in a neighborhood compatibility buffer. The applicant just chose to put it on a site plan. So,
Councilmember Hall, do you wish to amend your motion?
No, I don't wish to amend the motion.
Councilmember Tizer, are you still good with that motion?
I'm fine with the motion, thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Back to you, Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 6, approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code, UDC, Article 4, Corridor and Nodes District, Section 4.3, Building Type Standards. This is the first reading.
This is the first reading.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Article 4, Corridor and Nodes District, Section 4.3, Building Type Standards. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Article 4, Corridor and Nodes Districts, Section 4.3, Building Type Standards of the Unified Development Code, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the first reading.
Ms. Steibel.
So a little background on this text amendment. In 2019, a text amendment was adopted to require a minimum of 2 building types in the NX, neighborhood mixed use, and the CX, commercial mixed use zoning classifications. For example, a townhouse building type and a general building type, in order to get a mix of uses. With the new text amendments that have been adopted since 2019, this requirement is no longer needed. So this text amendment is to amend this by removing this restriction of requiring a minimum of 2 building types within the NX and the CX zoning classifications. Planning Commission recommended approval. Staff recommends approval of the first reading.
Council have any questions for staff? Councilmember Judy.
I'd just like to state this is the first of 4 UDC amendments this evening. I think it's time we redo the UDC. Quit kicking the can down the road. So I'm ready to do that because every meeting we come to, there's 4 or 5. We do it every time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Palermo.
Excellent, thank you. So I certainly realize as look at any zoning code that there's opportunity for improvement, and it's hard to reach perfect when you're constantly learning. And this one I think is actually a great example and shows really just a disagreement. It shows a compromise and then showed improvement. So basically the reason this item that we're removing was originally added because there was a disagreement on I had brought forward that mixed-use properties should not be 100% residential. And so I wanted to basically prevent that. There was not agreement on that language or that possible solution, but the compromise was that there was agreement that this council had supported, which was that you at least had to have 2 separate zoning types, or I'm sorry, 2 separate building types. Later on, although not through certainly not unanimous, there was a decision to require that mixed use have mixed uses, in which case this was kind of superseded and not really necessary. So I'm glad to have this improvement, and definitely I think it's important that we're having these public meetings to make sure that we are having the absolute best code. We've learned a lot. We had a bad starting point that I think we've made better, and definitely hope that this item among the other ones tonight will be unanimous. Is my hope.
Additional comments, questions from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Seeing no one approach, do I have a motion?
Yes, Mayor. Motion to approve item number 6, approval of the text amendment to the Unified Development Code, UDC, Article 4, Corridor and Nodes District, Section 4.3, Building Type Standards.
We've got a motion by Councilmember Hall. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by 2 folks over here. I'll give it to Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And for the record, Councilmember Tizer is not in attendance for the vote, and we've got Zapata, Hall, Wilsey, Palermo, and Judy in favor of the motion. Thank you. Back to you, Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 7, approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code, UDC, to Section 4.5, allowed uses. This is the first reading.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Article 4, Corridor and Nodes District, Section 4.5, allowed uses. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Article 4, Corridor Nodes District, Section 4.5, allowed uses of the Unified Development Code, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this is the first reading.
So this is the first reading as stated for Section 4.5, allowed uses. Section 4.5.2, the use table, to be amended by changing the P, permitted, to a C, conditional, in the CC, commercial corridor zoning category for a townhouse use. So this is the current table that we have in the code. So under the residential uses, under townhouse, a C will be placed in the CC square. Planning Commission recommended approval of the first reading. Staff recommends approval of the first reading of the text amendment. Do you have any questions for staff?
Councilmember Palermo?
Thank you. I appreciate Councilmember Hall bringing this forward, because the reason I think this is so impactful is we have a number of commercial corridor, quote, CC zoning types, especially on the east side. And basically by leaving townhomes as permitted instead of conditional means that a developer could come in and just build 100% townhomes without any public process, without any opportunity for residents to weigh in, as well as any opportunity for mayor and council to look at that. So this is not eliminating townhomes. What it's doing is it's ensuring that there's a public process, and just frankly, especially as we look at to the east side, where there's really the need and the desire for a destination and somewhere for residents to go, and not just seeing properties turn into 100% residential or 100% townhomes. So I think it's an important initiative, and I appreciate Councilmember Hall bringing this forward.
Councilmember Judy?
Thank you. As I said on the previous item, I support this. I think there needs to be a comprehensive diagnostic review of the UDC, and perhaps we need to start over. This is number 2 of 4 this evening, and just keeps coming every meeting.
Additional comments, questions from council? Councilmember Hall?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm excited to bring this forward because it does align with the will of the residents of keeping commercial where possible, and if the right project comes in that has a mix, it certainly has an opportunity for the townhouses to be there.
Additional questions, comments from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? It's getting kind of scarce in here. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mayor. Motion to approve item number 7, approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code UDC, Section 4.5, allowed uses.
We've got a
Second.
motion by Councilmember Hall.
Second.
And it looks like we've got a unanimous second, so let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands, and it passes unanimously. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 8, approval of a text amendment to Article 13, Section 13.3.3 of the Unified Development Code, UDC, on construction phasing for a mixed-use development. This is the first reading.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Article 13, Section 13.3.3, application requirements. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Article 13, Section 13.3.3, application requirements of the Unified Development Code, text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this is the first reading.
So this is the one that you met with Planning Commission in a joint work session and discussed at length. And then the Planning Commission created the wording and the language. So this language right here, which states mixed-use development construction phasing, will be the language that's placed in the Unified Development Code. You also asked for a policy. So this next portion that's here is the intent and then the procedures. This policy will come to you as a resolution next month when this is on for second reading. One thing, after speaking with the city attorney, if you so choose to do so, in this language, if you like. You can put in the words by resolution after the words mayor and council in the first sentence, stating that we know it's going to be by resolution. However, after speaking with him, he said you could do it either way. If you choose to add that language, you can. If you do so, that'd be fine to do at this point. Or since you're going to be doing it by resolution next month as well, it was up to you, but I wanted to bring that forward if you'd like to add that language. So in the next month, when you see this for a second reading, you'll have this item as a second reading, and then the policy portion, the intent and the procedures, will be its own item on the agenda for you to approve by resolution. Planning Commission recommended approval of the text amendment change. Staff recommends approval of the first reading of the text amendment.
Council have any questions? Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you, Mayor. There are parts of this that I like and parts of this that I don't like. In the spirit of compromise, though, it's, I think, the best that we can put together, and so tonight I'll be supporting the first reading.
Councilmember Zapata.
So what is the, what is the point to approve an ordinance without the rules and procedures or regulation by the resolution? Why are they traveling to get them separate when one really needs the other one and vice versa?
Okay, so this portion here is going to go in the Unified Development Code. Okay, so when an applicant comes in, they'll take a look at that, and staff will work with them to talk to them about what they have and the fact that there'll be a construction phasing section that they'll have to adhere to and show to staff while they're beginning the process. This next section is policy. Policy does not go in the Unified Development Code. It is set by mayor and council, and it can change at any time. So the next, it doesn't, I understand this correctly, this has to have two readings. The Unified Development Code section does. The policy is set by resolution. So we're just bringing this forward at this time to let you know, once again, what the policy is that you came up with the Planning Commission at the joint work session. Next month, when this is back for second reading, this portion right here, this portion under the policy for the intent and the procedures will be a separate line item on your agenda for you to approve by resolution. So once you set up this policy with the intent and procedures, it'll be policy for anybody who wants to come in and do a mixed-use development project, which we have set up the standards for once this is adopted at the second reading in the Unified Development Code. So, for example, we'll make it easy. Let's use the property that everybody's talked about on the east side, the Coles. Let's just, for example, we haven't talked to anybody in a while, but just letting you use that as an example. Let's say somebody comes in, they're zone CX, which is under this section here, and wants to do a mixed-use development. So they come to staff, they will have to provide us with a construction phasing policy at the beginning to kind of give us an understanding of how the build-out's gonna be based on the intent here and all these procedures that you will set forward in the policy. That's to give you an example. So if in the future, after this is adopted next month, if somebody comes in, we will share this policy with them and let them know that this is what they'd have to meet and show us for construction. So when they come before you as mayor and council for a mixed-use development project, and if they happen to have townhomes or apartments or something in that regard with residential, they will have to show in their package how they are meeting the construction phasing so that the commercial portion is set and then everything is done based on this policy. Does that help? Thank you.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So, and Ms. Dibble, thank you for that description. So this is certainly a very important initiative. I brought this forward in 2020 because, it's really important that if a developer is promising mixed use, that they have to actually deliver what they're promising and what's getting approved. And therefore, this would ensure that what happened at Highway 9 at Sun Valley would never happen again, where a mixed-use project was promised and only the apartments were built. So I think this is a really important protection, and although in a different way, something that Alpharetta and other jurisdictions do to ensure that. And frankly, I certainly would prefer something that was a little stricter, but I think Planning Commission did do a really thorough job of finding good compromise and being unanimous with it. I think they really rolled their sleeves up, so I certainly tip my hat to Planning Commission and certainly accept their recommendation in these procedures, et cetera, as a good compromise. Two things that I want to call out is, one, just as a reminder, what was discussed is at any point in time, if a request is coming to council, then mayor and council has the authority to either make this stricter or more lenient. They could remove it, they could adjust it, and so that's been the intent in all the discussions, and I stand by that. But I think this is a great baseline, and also my last comment is specifically for staff as well. I think this point was brought up but was never addressed. Was that in the intent statement, it mentions horizontal mixed-use developments, although, to my understanding, that's horizontal mixed use is not a term within the code. And in fact, it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, this actually would not even apply to vertical, because obviously you can't build the top floor without building the bottom floor. So it's my understanding that this is just any time that there is the horizontal, but I had thought the word horizontal wasn't necessary, or perhaps could be confusing since we don't have it in the code. So I had thought we had discussed potentially moving that one word horizontal. But again, I think this is a great important update, and it will ensure that that again, going forward, if a developer promises mixed use, that's what will end up getting built. I think this does that and does a great job for residents.
Councilmember Judy.
Thank you, Mayor. 3 of 4 this evening. I was not on council in 2017 when Sun Valley was approved and built. I, too, think this is a good thing for the UDC to be brought forward. I wish it was a part of a comprehensive diagnostic review or a redo of the UDC. But I think this is important so Sun Valley doesn't happen again, because there aren't many people who drive by and love that. And I'm glad I was not on council when that happened. Moving forward, I will support this evening, as I have since it came from Planning Commission. And I think this will take care of things like Sun Valley happening again.
Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I would say it definitely has been a learning process since the Sun Valley project was approved in 2017. I think in addition to adding the phasing to mixed-use projects, we also learned not to redesign projects on the fly, so that what might have been an integrated project doesn't end up as this one, as the one at Sun Valley has. We've also learned with the mixed-use projects that have gone through since then, we have added some phasing requirements as well, and concurrent development requirements. So I do support this as well. I want to confirm just when a proposal will come to council at this point for a mixed-use development at any point. They have to meet all the requirements that have already been set up as far as percentages. They would be asking for conditional use for the different residential, and then they'd have to meet all the other requirements for like 51% and present a phasing plan. Like all that would need to be presented to council at the same time. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So we would be approving all of those things together.
As one package.
That's how it works, as one package. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would also like to mention that while I support these text amendments this evening, that I was opposed to this project. I was very vocal about it. There was an easy way to avoid what happened at Sun Valley, and that was to deny the project, but council chose not to do that. and we are trying to clean up after that mess. And like I said, I was opposed to it. It would have been easy to deny that project, but we did not do it. Additional comments, Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. So is this second reading will come before November 2nd?
Yes, the second reading comes on October 12th of next month.
Okay, great. So yeah, what an election year makes. So because we have some opposition at the beginning, this and especially with the meat or what I call the procedures and rules, which is what really matter here. So they will have a opposition for that. But yeah, great to have election year for some elected officials who just do this on election year. So, and yeah, it was a mistake what happened in Sun Valley. It was a mistake, and that will correct. I wish that this existed before, even though we had to put a big fight for the last almost year here to get this done. We're still here in 2021 discussing this item, but again, hopefully we'll come before November 2nd and we have a unanimous support now. So I think that this will correct the mistake, well, not a mistake, what happened with Sun Valley, intentional or unintentional. So I think that this will definitely make sure that this doesn't happen again in Roswell.
I would like to say that while you might want to make hay with an election year, I have supported this from the very beginning because I was absolutely opposed to what happened with Sun Valley. I am still, I've met with the developers of Sun Valley, and I am at odds with them for what has taken place. So, like I said, my vote was to deny. I did not win on that zoning. Sun Valley was built. Now we've got to deal with it, and making hay out of an election year and twisting the truth, I've got a real issue with that. So I would encourage the voters in Roswell to look at the voting records. I would encourage the voters of Roswell to look at minutes and not listen to pontificating from the dais. Councilmember Palermo.
Instead of engaging in a debate or any just that type of discussion, I want to get back to actually the meat and just really talk with staff, obviously publicly and with this council. Was my feedback clear on the horizontal, or I guess the concern, the fact that horizontal mixed use, could there be different definitions, things like that? It's not something we use. So I guess is there any reason or benefit of that horizontal being there, or confusion that's caused by it potentially?
We can remove the word horizontal so that nobody gets confused related to it, since there is no word on horizontal in the UDC. So
Yeah,
that could be removed before the October meeting.
Excellent, because yeah, I'm just after a year of trying to bring this forward and really change this for the future of Roswell. I'm just so glad to hear that now there will be support, and just really excited to see this pass.
Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you. I'd like to just make the same request of the clerk that I made earlier. If the clerk could provide us with the vote on the Sun Valley project from back in 2017. I think that's 2 prior councils ago. But if you could provide us with that, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Tizer. I will request that from our city clerk. Additional, yes, Councilmember Palermo.
I think that would be helpful, and also in line with that, since there was some discussion around this topic, if the city clerk could bring forward each time this was discussed and voted upon within both committee and council, I think that would help clear the air as well.
I do not see anyone out there in the public that is, I don't see much public, so is there anybody out there that would like to come forward and speak? Councilmember Zapata?
Thank you, Mayor. So does the council can address the city clerk to provide this, or the mayor have to authorize like did on the past?
It can be a part of the motion. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion, but I have a clarifying question for Councilmember Zapata. May I ask?
Pardon?
May I ask him a question? Councilmember Zapata?
Well, I would prefer that you would keep the comments toward the public.
Okay. Can you clarify what you wanted to add to the motion, please?
No, my point was
I
like,
haven't called on you, Councilmember Zapata. Councilmember Zapata.
oh, thank you. So, yeah, my point was that I heard the mayor requesting directly to the city clerk for information, and I didn't hear this time when Councilmember Palermo requests. So my question is we can request directly to the city clerk to provide this, or have to go through the mayor request like she been doing tonight, request this?
And my response was, this can be a part of the motion if Councilmember Hall sees fit. Councilmember Hall, do you have a motion?
Thank you, Mayor. My item number 8, motion to approve number 8 with one change, that we add by resolution to the language after mayor and city council as discussed. And staff will remove the word horizontal before the next reading. That is the motion.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry. Motion to approve item number 8 with 2 changes, that we add by resolution, the language, the 2 words by resolution after mayor and city council as discussed, and that staff remove the word horizontal from the resolution itself.
Thank you. We've got a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Judy. Clarifying question?
So my clarifying question was for Councilman, so my clarifying question for the liaison over ComDev is that Councilman Tizer brought forward a couple requests to the clerk, in which case each time the mayor said they were going to direct the clerk. And I guess my clarifying question was, is the intent, the opportunity for the same type of request that per the mayor's recommendation we put in the motion? So would that motion include that, or would that motion not include just the really identical to Councilman Tizer's request, which was for each time the phasing and this type of discussion has existed at committee meeting or mayor and council meetings, and all the votes with it?
Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you. If it makes Councilmember Palermo happy, I'll withdraw my request and find the information on my own. We've worked very hard for a long time to come to this compromise, a process that we think will work for both residents and businesses. And I think we should put the visceral reactions beside ourselves and vote on the motion the way Councilmember Hall has read it into the record.
We've got a motion and a second. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a clarifying question. Is there an opportunity after the motion, second, and vote to request the information of the clerk of the records?
If you would like a formal request that council votes on of the city clerk, then I would include it with your motion.
Thank you.
Councilmember Judy.
This is getting ridiculous. Can we please vote on the motion that I seconded? And if Marley's a great city clerk. If somebody wants the information, I'm sure you can walk down, ask her, and she will give it to us. We're using the people's time here at the dais, and this is ridiculous. Let's move on and vote on this.
Councilmember Palermo.
Believe it or not, I actually agree with Councilman Judy. I think it was just, Mr. Davidson can correct me if I'm wrong, but actually, the city clerk would provide that information to anyone that asked, not just mayor and council. And it was really just to point out the irony that the mayor had repeated each of Councilman Tiser's requests, and then when there was a different request, of course, the mayor wanted that as a part of the motion. But in reality, let's move on, let's approve this, and I really hope that it's unanimous and we get this moving.
We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hands, and it passes unanimously. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 9, approval of a text amendment to Article 13 of the Unified Development Code, UDC, regarding historic preservation. This is the first reading.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Article 13, Section 13.2.4, Historic Preservation Commission, Section 13.7.2, when is historic review required, Section 13.7.12, what approval criteria are required, and Section 13.7.15, what if a certificate is denied. Now therefore, the mayor and city council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Article 13, Section 13.2.4, Section 13.7.2, Section 13.7.12, and Section 13.7.15 of the Unified Development Code, text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this is the first reading.
So this one is brought to you because we were requested by the state to make some changes to our historic preservation section of the Unified Development Code. We worked with the Assistant City Attorney, Michael Petty, going over all of our items. He's reviewed them and looked through them, so everything that we have here has been reviewed by legal. So this is a change to Section 13.2.4 to amend in order to put the section in the OCGA as requested by the state, basically stating that you can find it on the website. This section is when is historic review required. We are adding a letter E related to ordinary maintenance or repair. Although we do this now, the state asked us to actually have it in the code to indicate that if you're doing ordinary maintenance and repair, it does not, and that does not involve a material change, it is not included and does not have to go to HPC for review. Also, 13.7.12, what approval criteria are used. We're adding a letter F to indicate that interior arrangement or use is not reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission. And the last one is Section 13.7.15, what if a certificate is denied? And this is just to indicate if a decision by the Historic Preservation Commission is denied, an applicant is informed that they have 30 days after the denial to submit an appeal to the mayor and council. And then if the mayor and council chooses to uphold the HPC's decision, that they can appeal that decision to Fulton County Superior Court. Planning Commission recommended approval. Staff recommends approval of the first reading.
Council have any questions? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Do I have a motion?
Motion to, oh, sorry. I got excited. Get out of here.
Yeah, I can
Get
tell.
out of here.
Thank you, Mayor. Motion to approve number 9, approval of the text amendment to Article 13 of the Unified Development Code, UDC, regarding historic preservation.
We've got a motion by Councilmember Hall. We've got a second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. The only item on my agenda is recommendation for closure to discuss personnel, litigation, and real estate.
Do I have a motion for closure?
Motion to go to closure.
Motion by Councilmember Tiser. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. We are adjourned.